Tonight you will close a door, you will turn off a light, you will lie down in a quiet room, alone, in the dark, and expect to fall asleep in one uninterrupted block for 8 hours. This feels normal. It feels like it has always been this way. It has not. For most of human history, sleep did not look like this at all. Your ancestors did not have bedrooms. They did not have doors that locked, or mattresses, or silence, and yet they slept. So what did it actually look like before any of the things you associate with rest even existed? The story starts with a mistake, a shared modern mistake. You assume that sleep is a private act because your bedroom is private, but privacy is new. For nearly all of the last 300,000 years, humans slept in groups, on open ground, near a fire, surrounded by the sounds of other bodies breathing, shifting, and occasionally waking. Sleep researcher Jerome Siegel spent years studying 3 modern hunter-gatherer societies whose lifestyles resemble those of early humans. He wanted to know what sleep looks like without electricity, without walls, without any of the modern conditions you take for granted. What he found surprised almost everyone who studies sleep. These groups did not sleep for a solid, uninterrupted block. They dozed. They woke briefly in the night, spoke a few words to someone nearby, and drifted back off. Nobody panicked about it. Nobody reached for their phone to check the time, because obviously there was no phone. And there was also no anxiety attached to being awake at 3 a.m. Waking in the night was not a malfunction. It was simply part of the rhythm. Why would a body evolve to sleep like that? Think about where you would have slept 50,000 years ago, not in a locked room, out in the open, or in a shallow shelter with predators moving through the dark beyond the firelight. A body that slept too deeply for too long without waking was a body that could be caught off guard. Broken sleep was not a flaw. It was protection. This is where the fire becomes important. Long before bedrooms, there was the fire. It was the center of the group. It was warmth and light and a kind of shared nervous system. Everyone slept close to it and close to each other because a body alone in the dark was a vulnerable body. Sleeping in a group was not a comfort choice. It was survival math. Anthropologist Carol Worthman documented sleep patterns across a wide range of traditional societies and found something almost universal. Sleep was rarely solitary. Children slept touching a parent. Adults slept within arm's reach of other adults. The sounds of the group, the breathing, the occasional cough, even someone getting up to tend the fire were not disturbances. They were reassurance. A silent room to an ancient brain might actually register as suspicious. Where did everyone go? Why is it so quiet? Now here is where the story gets stranger. This pattern of broken communal sleep did not disappear with the end of hunting and gathering. It lasted for thousands of years afterward, well into recorded history, right up until something changed everything. Historian A. Roger E. Kirk spent over a decade digging through diaries, court records, and medical texts from pre-industrial Europe. He found something almost nobody had noticed before. People did not talk about sleeping through the night. They talked about first sleep and second sleep. You would go to bed a few hours after dark, sleep for 3 or 4 hours, then wake naturally in the middle of the night. This waking period lasted an hour or two. People used it to pray, to talk quietly with a partner, to tend to small tasks, or simply to lie awake in the dark thinking. Then they would fall back into a second sleep until morning. Nobody described this as insomnia. There was no word for it as a problem because it was not one. It was simply how a night unfolded. Doctors mentioned it. Poets mentioned it. It was ordinary. The way checking your phone before bed is ordinary to you now. So what changed? What erased this pattern so completely that most people today have never even heard of it? Light did. Cheap, controllable, artificial light. As gas lamps and eventually electric lighting spread through cities, night stopped being uniformly dark. People stayed up later, compressed their sleep into a single block to make room for evening activity, and the natural middle of the night waking period slowly vanished from daily life. Within a few generations, segmented sleep was not just uncommon, it was forgotten entirely, as if it had never existed. This matters more than it might seem to, because that forgotten pattern is still sitting inside you. If you wake up at 3 a.m. and cannot immediately fall back asleep, your first instinct is probably worry. You check the time. You calculate how many hours you have left. You label it a problem, maybe even a disorder, but your body might simply be doing something it did for tens of thousands of years without any trouble at all. That does not mean every case of modern insomnia is secretly ancient wisdom in disguise. Chronic sleep disruption is a real and serious issue, and it deserves real attention, not a comforting historical footnote. But the panic itself, the idea that any wakefulness in the night is inherently wrong, that part is worth questioning. Your ancestors woke in the dark constantly. They just were not afraid of it. There is something else worth sitting with here. Ancient sleep was almost never solitary, and modern sleep almost always is. You sleep behind a closed door, often in a room by yourself, in near total silence, and you expect your nervous system to simply relax into that. But for most of your evolutionary history, silence and isolation were the exception, not the rule. Total quiet, no other breathing bodies nearby, no fire, no group. This was the setup your brain associates with danger, not safety. This might be part of why so many people find it strangely comforting to fall asleep with a podcast playing, or the television murmuring in the background, or a partner breathing beside them. It is not a modern quirk. It might be an old instinct finally getting something it recognizes. So picture it one more time. Not your bedroom tonight, but a clearing thousands of years ago. A fire burning low, bodies arranged loosely around it, some asleep, some stirring, someone murmuring something to the person beside them before drifting off again. No shame in being awake, no clock to check, no sense that anything is wrong, just a group of people breathing together in the dark, trusting that waking briefly and sleeping again was simply what a night was supposed to feel like. Tonight you will close a door, turn off a light, and expect silence and stillness to deliver you 8 unbroken hours. But somewhere underneath that expectation is a much older rhythm, one built for firelight and shared breathing and waking gently in the dark without fear, and it has been quietly waiting inside you the entire time.